Welcome to the Virtual Strategic Solutions Virtual Reality Simulation System. Accessing Legacy Dataset. Files loaded, simulation ready. Megaton is a fortified settlement in the Capital Wasteland in 2277. This shantytown is built around a crater with an undetonated Megaton-class atomic bomb at its center, after which the town is named. The town of Megaton is protected by large metal walls made from various scavenged materials, primarily the scraps of old pre-war airplanes, which were assembled and reforged together several decades ago by the founders of Megaton in an effort to make the town safer. With 28 named inhabitants, 10 unnamed Megaton settlers, and 4 children of the atom, it is surpassed only by Rivet City in terms of population. Megaton's crater was first settled by a large group of people who either worshipped the undetonated bomb or sought shelter in Vault 101, but was denied access because the Vault dwellers were not allowed to leave or let anyone in as part of the Vault's experiment. Locked out of the Vault, these settlers, including Manya Vargas's grandfather, simply settled into the crater for protection against dust storms. After the storms died down, some people began to wander the wastes, but would return to the crater to trade their scavenged goods. A generation later, the crater had turned into a full-on trade hub. Vargas's father became wealthy on these caravan routes and eventually convinced others to build the scrap metal wall surrounding the town to repel raiders. Construction on the wall started in 2241. Early that year, raiders attacked the town, resulting in the death of the 14-year-old Colin Moriati's father. After the raid, Moriati inherited his father's wealth and his bar, Moriati's Saloon. Over the course of a couple of months, the residents of the town built the walls out of necessity. Aircraft debris from an air station a few miles from the crater was the only material that remained and was readily available. The bomb in the center of the crater remained there. When the wall was being erected, the settlement needed as much manpower as it could get, and removing the bomb would have upset those that worshipped it, pushing them away. That is not to say a lot of other people felt it was best to not disturb it. It was not hurting anything, and it could have adverse effects if transferred to another location. In February 2241, an expeditionary party of Vault 101, led by Anne Palmer and sent by the overseer of the Vault, made contact with the residents of Megaton. Initially, the locals were cautious of the strangers before eventually accepting and welcoming them into their settlement. Palmer appointed 2 Vault residents, Agnes Taylor and Lewis, as Vault ambassadors to Megaton. By the time of the expedition, the front gate of Megaton had been completed. In 2277, space is limited in the town, forcing many residents to live in the common house, a building that would usually be reserved for meetings and voting. Lucas Sims is the self-appointed town sheriff and does not hesitate to throw anyone out if they cause trouble. On the subject of trouble, Colin Moriati runs the town saloon and has a less than decent reputation, keeping the drunks drunk and his employees in servitude. Moriati has a line on everything that happens in Megaton, and it all eventually gets back to him. In early 2277, a gang of raiders occupied nearby Springvale Elementary School, intending to tunnel from the school basement into Vault 101. A group led by Boppo staged a raid on Megaton, but the attack was foiled when Boppo was shot in the head and killed by Lucas Sims. The raiders did not leave the area, though, choosing to remain at the Springvale School in order to dig a tunnel into Vault 101. Their mining operation stopped when they opened a nest of giant ants. The same year, Vault 101 would open, and the lone wanderer would stop in Megaton in search of their father James, who himself earlier had come through the town during his own exodus. During their time here, the lone wanderer would meet Moira Brown and start working with her to write the Wasteland Survival Guide. Lucas Sims is a native of Megaton who grew up in the town and gained a deep understanding of what it takes to survive in the wasteland. He never surrendered his childhood cowboy fantasy and eventually appointed himself the sheriff of Megaton. He takes care of any public duty necessary for the people of his town, mayor, judge, etc., and deals with most troublemakers by unceremoniously throwing them out of the town. More serious offenders, such as raiders trying to prey on the town, are shot, either by Sims or by the town's militia and robots under his command. However, Sims neglects training and half of the defenders can't really shoot straight. Most of the day-to-day affairs are actually managed by Colin Moriati, Sims' rival for control over Megaton. Moriati is older than Sims and was already dealing with raiders when Lucas was a kid playing out his Wild West fantasies. He considers himself the true power in the town, but while the two fight over control, neither wants to directly confront the other, as the town would otherwise be left vulnerable. This leads to confused responsibilities and a state of chaos. Most accept that Sims is the law around Megaton, and Moriati simply thinks he's really in control. It seems that even Sims is unsure, as many settlers who want a home in Megaton are constantly rebuffed. He does keep Moira Brown's explosive experiments in check, however. Lucas is well liked. He's big and intimidating, but wins people over with his friendliness, charm, and the rustic Wild West aesthetic he lives out, even naming his son after John Wesley Hardin, an ancient outlaw. He even treats Deputy Steele as a person, though it unsettles some. And though the responsibilities are confused, Sims does ensure that Megaton remains mostly peaceful, a source of pride for Sims. The other point of pride is his membership in the secretive regulators, which is not common knowledge. Jericho is a former raider and possible companion. He was once a dangerous raider out in the Capital Wasteland, who killed and stole for measly amounts of caps and loot. After fighting with the raiders for many years and becoming a crack shot with a rifle, Jericho settled down in Megaton to enjoy his twilight years, but he did not lose his raider ways. The smarmy, rude Jericho helps protect the town, but still gets drunk and curses at passers-by. He has thought about getting back out into the waste to fight again, but not without some caps for equipment. Jericho occasionally does some odd jobs for Colin Moriati. Colin Moriati, who is 50 years old in 2277, has lived in Megaton almost his entire life. According to Herbert Dashwood, he came to the former United States as a child. He is of Irish descent and apparently traveled directly to the US from Ireland. After coming to the US, Colin's father amassed his wealth using nearby trade routes and helped secure Megaton as a trading hub in the area. Colin's father died during a raider attack in 2241, and his son inherited his wealth, including the saloon. He is a very proactive businessman and a staunch supporter of the just business approach to economics. If someone wants something from him, it had better be worth his while. Aside from providing alcohol and prostitutes for the town, in exchange for a more than satisfactory amount of bottle caps, and extorting even more caps from whomever he can, he deals in information much more than the aforementioned worldly pleasures. He is very knowledgeable regarding the townspeople of Megaton, and is always keeping tabs on them in case he needs to blackmail them later. He has even done this enough to gain an unsavory reputation. According to Nova, his call girl, he sells information so much you'd think the bar was just a hobby. Moriati is also adamantly self-assured that Megaton is his town, and that Sheriff Lucas Sims is only a facade, and an illusion of order that Moriati allows to exist. Still, there is some truth to this statement, as Sims is acutely aware that the town needs Moriati's support and resources to survive. Other townspeople think similarly of him, wary of how many pies he has his fingers in, and how deceitful the man is. His rivals in the saloon business, the Stahls, specifically Andy Stahl, will take the first opportunity to defame his business and his business practices. Regardless of his interactions with the townspeople, he treats his employees even worse, locking up their earnings for himself out of paranoia. He treats Gob, the ghoul he bought from slavers 15 years ago, especially poorly. If slavery was not bad enough, Moriati even forces Gob to pay for his room and board, while also having to reimburse Moriati for the caps used to buy him, trapping Gob in a cycle of indentured servitude. Due to his outlook on life, he believes that the message that Three Dog is promoting on Galaxy News Radio, The Good Fight, is both crazy and stupid. He furthermore cares little for news about the wasteland. To him, Megaton has everything one could possibly need, and does not see a reason for people to want to leave it. As it turns out, the Lone Wanderer had met Moriati even before their father left Vault 101. On their way to the vault to ensure the infant Lone Wanderer's safety, James and Star Paladin Cross stayed in Moriati's saloon shortly after the Lone Wanderer's birth. Moriati even proposed a toast to James and his child, hoping their future be safe, bright and boring as hell. Confessor Cromwell is the prophet of Atom and father of the undying glow in the Church of the Children of Atom, a Megaton cult in Fallout 3 that worships an undetonated atomic bomb left over from the Great War. Cromwell is 44 years old and travelled in his youth, settling in Megaton. The church granted him permission to stay due to the blessing and high standing of his predecessor in the church, who fostered him in the ways of Atom. Eventually, Cromwell proved to be a valuable resource in protecting and aiding the town, and he became an eccentric distraction to most of the citizens of Megaton. He is married to Mother Maya, his counterpart in the church. He keeps a personal journal on a terminal. He is a self-described prophet of the children of Atom and styles himself as such. He fully believes in the faith and will advise others to bask in Atom's glow, to understand that the greatest wealth that a person has is their own. He also believes that each person is lost in their own way, on their own path. As the leader of his faith, he takes no effort to become involved in the lay matters around him. Confessor Cromwell and Mother Maya treat God with respect and an air of reverence because of their spiritual beliefs. Andy Stahl is the business manager of the Brass Lantern. The oldest of the Stahl siblings running Moriarty's competition, Andy is the most quiet and reserved of the trio. He is clever and adept at manipulating other people, and is among the only people in Megaton aware that Mr. Burke is planning to detonate the bomb in its heart, and has been slowly figuring out where to move the restaurant to a better location where the Stahls can generate more income. The Stahls aren't native to Megaton. They immigrated to the city from further out east in recent time, challenging Moriarty's control of the booze market in Megaton. Moriarty has not yet figured out how to undercut the Stahls, relying on Nova's prostitution for the time being. Andy hates Colin with a passion and flippantly jokes to people who chat him up that Moriarty urinates in his skill, and briefly considers advertising the Lantern as cleaner, safer, and less likely to have piss in the drinks. Regardless of marketing concerns, if anyone asks, he pretends that the saloon doesn't exist. That said, Andy isn't actually happy in Megaton, considering it a hole and a dead end, with its only saving grace being the revenue it generates for him and his family. It's the only reason he sticks around. While he has a caustic personality, he genuinely cares about Jenny and Leo. The mere thought of them is enough to dial back his hostility, at least until he remembers the sheer volume of work he has to go through. The combination of hostility and constant work causes other Megaton denizens to consider him a workaholic. Regardless of their opinions, Stahl simply has a strong work ethic and tries to run his business as professionally as possible, including proper accounting, balancing the books and tickets for meals served. This is also a sticking point between him and his younger brother Leo Stahl, who is very casual about proper bookkeeping and routinely comes up short when serving drinks. Andy chalks irregularities in the logs to Leo's carelessness and berates him regularly, asking for more caution and attention to detail. His love for his brother blinds him to the unpleasant truth. Leo is skimming caps to fund his addiction and hid it from his brother. It doesn't stop him from suggesting expensive upgrades to the Lantern, such as a new refrigerator or a prostitute to match Nova. Andy routinely shuts them down as too expensive or otherwise infeasible. Leo Stahl is more extroverted and outspoken compared to his brother, and he enjoys talking to the customers of their restaurant. When he was a teenager, he spent time with caravanners and traveled to a few places around the wasteland. In his travels, he picked up a jet addiction, although he has been able to hide it from his siblings and the town, with the exception of Mr. Burke and Colin Moriarty. Colin wrote in his personal computer about Leo, "Never trust a junkie. That's what I've learned trying to deal with this piece of work. He wanders in here higher than a bird in flight and tried to make it with Nova. She slapped him silly after he didn't want to pay, the good girl. I almost kicked him out myself, but he staggered out of here. That guy may just be the straw I need to break Andy's back." During the day, he sells drinks in the Brass Lantern and wanders the town, while at night he satisfies his chem addiction at the water processing plant. Jenny, a 24-year-old member of the Stahl family, is often a mediator between her brothers, Leo and Andy. Growing up somewhere out east, her parents died when she was a child. Thus, she and Andy were raised by Leo. Jenny is attracted to Billy Creel, who reciprocates these feelings, which is why he comes to the restaurant to eat. Nova spends most of her time hanging around the bar, talking to Gob, Moriati, Jericho, and other customers. Every now and then she goes up to her room with a client. Her standards are not exactly high, but she explicitly states that she does not serve ghouls. Another part of her job is to sweet-talk the male patrons and get them to spend caps on booze, company, or just a bed for the night. She has a day off, on which she goes shopping. She has lived in Megaton since around 2272, but has grown unenthusiastic during her stay. This is in no small part due to how Colin Moriati treats her. Moriati does not even trust her with her earnings, taking them and locking them up for himself. Nova also has a chem habit, as Moriati is displeased of her consuming jet. She has learned that the best way to survive is to keep her nose out of other people's business, which means she never publicly works counter to Moriati's interests. Needless to say, if Moriati was out of the picture, she would retire from sex work. Growing up as a forager, Billy Creel eventually became a gun for hire, protecting wasteland caravans for money, then a scavenger. He was completely focused on survival, until a chance encounter in 2275 awoke his paternal instinct. Creel stopped at a small settlement up north to trade salvage in, only to realize that it was wiped out by a raider attack. He found Maggie there, hiding under a bed in the same room that her parents were killed in, and promptly took her in. As a newly minted father, Creel journeyed south and settled in Megaton, becoming a permanent resident after he helped repulse a raider attack. One of the residents was killed in the attack, and he was promptly rewarded with their house for his contribution to the defense. However, this has also led to persistent rumors that it was his bullet, not a raider's, that claimed the original owner's life and bought him a place among the citizenry. Maggie loves spending time with Billy, and the prospect of a trip to Rivet City, or scavenging for a bicycle to restore to working condition, never failed to make her happy. Doc Church used to stay alive by trading his services to raiders and slavers before he moved to Megaton. At that point, the town had been without a doctor for years. It may be a rat-infested hellhole, as he calls it, but he also says that it is the least hellish place in which he has lived. He is always professional, even if he is overworked, underappreciated, and quite bitter because of it. Part of his professionalism is his adherence to doctor-patient confidentiality, although he will share patient information with other doctors if he thinks they can do some good. As Megaton's only doctor, he has got a lot on his plate and does not appreciate people bothering him without good cause. This includes when a holotape concerning an escaped android got into Doc Church's hands. He just passed it off as a hoax, but still knows that Horace Pinkerton is the only man in the wasteland who could perform a facial reconstruction. Gobtholomew. Gob is an abused ghoul bartender who works at Moriati's saloon, treated as a freakish second-class citizen by many people in Megaton, particularly Colin Moriati. Gob is skittish and nervous, always looking over his shoulder. He does his best to maintain a sense of humor and to be friendly with customers, but this is mostly out of his desire not to be beaten. Confessor Cromwell and Mother Maya treat Gob with respect and an air of reverence because of their spiritual beliefs. Gob used to live in Underworld with his adoptive mother, Carol, in Carol's place. He set out into the wasteland to find fortune and was caught by a group of slavers. Colin Moriati then purchased him as his slave. He works for Colin Moriati to repay the debt presumably incurred when Moriati purchased Gob from the slavers. Gob has been working to repay his debt for 15 years, since Moriati also charges Gob for rent and food-driven, slightly demented by lack of sustenance, and fearful of his life after a narrow escape from the raider gang holed up in the Springvale school. Mickey made it to the entrance of Megaton by late 2277 and began begging for water, specifically purified water, as he is so sickly that he cannot drink irradiated water anymore without vomiting. However, Megaton only gives water to its residents, or those that can pay for it. Mickey remains hopeful that someone will be kind enough to give him water. Truthfully, that is his only hope, as he is out of caps, and so could not possibly buy water. Even the Brotherhood of Steel's water caravans would not simply hand out aqua pura to wasteland beggars. Though he is jaded by his experiences, he will be very grateful for any help given. Mother Maya is Confessor Cromwell's wife, but they do not announce this to others, as they are both occupied with spreading the ideals of church. Mother Maya is kind and treats ghouls like Gob with respect and an air of reverence because of their spiritual beliefs. Mr. Burke is first found spending his days at Moriati's saloon, drinking and talking to Colin Moriati, or asking Gob, the ghoul bartender, questions such as, what is it like being a ghoul, the effects of radiation on his body, and what it's like to live among the non-irradiated populace. He can be found sitting in a chair in Moriati's saloon before the start of the quest, The Power of the Atom. If the lone wanderer accepts the fusion pulse charge, he will go back to Tenpenny Tower once the task of rearming the bomb is finished, and will wait for the lone wanderer to rendezvous with him. Alternatively, if the lone wanderer disarms the nuke, he will leave Moriati's saloon and travel back to Tenpenny Tower. This might take him a few days and he may be killed in the wasteland. He will then spend all of his time in or on the same floor as his suite. Nathan ran a caravan route for over 30 years with his wife, Manya. It was during this period that he became obsessed with the Enclave. He has become a bit of a fanatic, believing that the Enclave will bring salvation to the wasteland, and is trying to convince everyone else in Megaton of this fact. Most of the residents write Nathan off as the local busybody, but all are quick to note that after 30 years on the back of a wagon, he's still a skilled marksman. He believes all of the Enclave propaganda he hears over Enclave radio to the letter, and openly praises them as saviors of the wastes. Nathan promises the lone wanderer that things will be different when the Enclave gets here. Nathan has an open tab at Moriati's saloon, which currently stands at 8 caps. Born in Megaton, Manya has lived to the ripe old age of 64, despite a lifetime spent on the caravan trail together with her husband, Nathaniel Vargas. After saving up caps on the caravan trail, they retired at Megaton. While Manya witnessed every misery in the wasteland in her long life, it has not destroyed her optimism and gentle nature. As a result, she is a font of wisdom and knowledge, happily sharing her accumulated experience with other denizens of the town, making her very popular and successful. Manya is descended from one of the founders of Megaton, and one of the people most knowledgeable about the town's history. Manya passes the time by trying to cultivate flowers, using seeds obtained from Moira Brown, assuming Nathan doesn't forget to pick them up. While she's retired, there's one exception. During her time on the caravan trail, Manya came into contact with the railroad and was sworn in as an operative. She is currently inactive after the railroad evacuated A321 from the Commonwealth, and all of its operatives went to the ground until the heat from the Institute dies down. She helped find a surgeon and technician to provide the synth with a new face and identity, Pinkerton, the hermit scientist of Rivet City. The fact that they managed to bury the trail successfully makes her glad, although she prefers to keep a tight lid on the matter, knowing that the hounds are still out there, baying for the synth's blood. Stockholm is the guard for Megaton and watches the gate. He resides in the guard tower outside the city above the main gate. After a successful hack attempt of Colin Moriati's computer, it is revealed he holds a tab at Moriati's saloon of 8 caps. Walter is an elderly handyman who has dedicated himself to maintaining Megaton's water purifier, having spent the past 35 years keeping it operational. In recent days, he has had more and more trouble maintaining the aging machine, becoming increasingly worried about the state of the purifier's infrastructure system. He spends most of his time in the plant, meaning that he's unable to fix the various leaks that have sprung up in the pipe system outside, as the only time he is able to leave is when he shuts off the system for the night. He is more than willing to employ anyone capable of fixing the leaks, and would further employ them to find scrap metal to make his job of maintaining the plant easier. Although originally frustrated over the poor state of the purifier, despite his efforts, he will become much more optimistic if assistance is granted for both of his requests, especially if one donates scrap metal to him rather than selling it. Moira Brown is the eccentric owner of Megaton's Craterside Supply. A self-styled inventor, 24-year-old Moira grew up with an uncommon curiosity about the world in the trading community of Canterbury Commons. Sometime before 2263, she moved to Megaton. She's read almost every book that's come through the town. Although Moira's reading has taught her a wide variety of useful knowledge, she has nearly no actual experience with the world, so she doesn't always understand how it can be applied outside of her workshop. After a recent accident with a domesticated centaur, Moira was inspired to write a book to help others survive in the wasteland and avoid similar dangers. After the guide was completed, with the help of the lone wanderer, it achieved considerable popularity, managing to reach places like the distant Mojave Wasteland in less than 4 years. By the time of Fallout 4, the Wasteland Survival Guide had become a series, with multiple guides on subjects ranging from self-defense to hunting and farming. Many of such issues can be found in the Commonwealth. By 2297, she continued to run the Craterside Supply and the distribution network of the Survival Guide. On September 10th, she began work on a biography of the Lone Wanderer,